This is the Jimmy Anderson Show, the weekly report on Oregon State University basketball.
Hi everybody, I'm Bob Akamian along with the coach. Welcome to this week's show. The Orange Express is 17-3, 10-1, and back on top of the Pac-10 Conference thanks to a little help from UCLA on Thursday night. I know George Raveling maybe got a little phone call after knocking off the Trojans.
I tell you, he did us a great favor beating UCLA. That must have been bedlam right there at USC. They usually don't have a good crowd, but I heard they had some fans there and cheered him on, and he did a tremendous job, especially for us.
So you're back in first place in the middle of his homestand. We talked about these three games being very important, the two Bay Area teams and now Oregon this week. Chance to really make some hay before two big trips with Washington and Arizona at the end.
We needed to get home and get some more practice time, and our whole thought was to make improvement and to win at home. You have to win at home if you're going to be right there at the top when the season ends. Well,
it started out on Thursday night against California. We'll go to the highlights right now. A late start. It was on ESPN, a chance to really show things off nationally, and they really went right to it. Gary Payton getting things started, taking it away from Keith Smith. Everything Cal did in that first matchup at Berkeley was really negated. You went to a man-to-man press, and they did not do well in the matchups at all.
Well, we started a smaller lineup, and right from the very, very start, we slapped the defense on. We kind of pressured them out of their offense a little bit, and they didn't get on sync, and we did, so let's rate it the #1 half of the year for us.
Yeah, Al Celestine, his first start as a collegiate.
Right. Alan did a nice job, and he helps us defensively and with the assists, and when he's shooting, he hasn't shot well lately, but when he's shooting, he can help us in that category too.
Scott Haskins just strong inside against Hendrick. He really gets the better of it this time around. He had good offense at Berkeley, but here he played the defense and was on the boards.
Right. He had probably he wanted that challenge too, because Hendrick is known to be the outstanding young player coming into the league, and Scotty, being young himself because he didn't play much last year, really was looking forward to the challenge, and he took it on.
Cal did not score for the first 4.5 minutes of the game before Keith Smith finally gets one in, and Keith suffers through probably his worst game I've ever seen him play, but certainly his worst game of the season here.
Well, he's never played extremely well against us, and I'm not really sure what the reason for it is, but even though he doesn't play well against us, he's a fine player, and I tell you what, I'm glad that he's a senior and we won't be playing him again.
Here's Al Celestine. He does miss this outside shot, gets the board and takes it back inside, finds the lane to the hoop. And Allen getting into the offense here. Just a great first half. Most of our highlights are from the first half. Everyone in the scoring act. Gary didn't have a big night for numbers. It didn't matter because everybody else shot well.
Right. That's what Gary's supposed to do, get everybody else started, and then if he can't help them and they can't help themselves, then he's supposed to take over.
And of course, Gary did come up with 10 assists, but he had 2 double-digit assist games this weekend, so he's doing his job there.
He's doing his job there. He's starting to hone in and getting closer to the national assist record, and I sure hope that this year he's able to accomplish that.
He's pretty close. I mean, he needed to have almost double digits per game, and he's doing it. I mean, it's hard to keep up that pace, but he is making it right now. There's 22 this weekend. There's Hendrick getting inside for one. Again, just brief moments for Cal in the first half. Everybody in the act lobbed there into Payton. And we got to see the youngsters off the bench here. First real big shot for McKinney this weekend. He played in both games.
Well, Alan Celestine got in a little foul trouble and he got his knee banged a little bit, so it looked like he was suffering. So we went with Charlie, and Charlie came in and played very well. In fact, every time we've called on Charlie, he's done a nice job for us.
Charles McKinney, of course, the freshman from Wilson High in Portland, getting his first significant action, and the guard soup gets a little thicker, and I know you're thinking ahead a bit to next year. You get these guys in there, and you get Celestine a lot of time now, and now McKinney, and it's not just Gary Payton handling the ball anymore.
Right. Carl Anderson came in too, Bob, and he did a very nice job for us. He got some boards for us, and through the entire weekend, he did a nice job.
We've talked about it from the beginning of the season. You really started with a 6-7-man team, and now you're building more. Carl Anderson, certainly Celestine has come into his own. Now we're seeing McKinney. So is this pretty much how you envisioned getting more people into the lineup?
Well, what we're trying to do is make our team overall as flexible as we can, so that if we need to go with a small lineup, we can. If we need to go with a medium lineup, we can. If we want to go with a big lineup. So we're just trying to offer some flexibility within our system.
Earl Martin, 17 points in this game. He was the high scorer, and he is our player of the week. We'll talk about him later on, but he really had a good, balanced offensive weekend. Teo, some good offense, didn't hurt you in either game, and Teo is making his gains too this year.
Well, his productions for minute play the last two games, if you charted it out, were very, very good. I mean, he just did a tremendous job trying to rebound, play defense, and do the little things, and all of a sudden he ends up with 10 points, and he really didn't even hardly play that much.
98-81 the final score. You shoot well. Good at the free throw line, too. Almost 80% games over the weekend, and again, everything clicking. But the Cal game important. I know you always talk about that Thursday game on the weekend. It is critical.
That first game, the first half, the first tip, it just seems to set the tempo, and everything went just the way we wanted it. We couldn't have drawn it out on the blackboard any better.
All right, well, you get through one that easy, then you start thinking about Saturday. That was Stanford. Coming up, we'll talk about the Saturday matchup with the Cardinal. Stanford, a Saturday afternoon visitor to Gill Coliseum. The Cardinal gave you a very good run that game down at Maples Pavilion. Shot the lights out from the outside. They're a scrappy team. They don't have the most talent in the conference, but Mike Montgomery is getting it all out of them. And I know you don't look forward to playing them again when they play so close the first time.
Never look forward to playing to Stanford, mainly because they're so physical. Adam Keefe just seems to just wear us out. He wears out at least 3 or 4 players a game. We just keep trying to run somebody in there to slow them down. We never seem to be able to do that.
You don't hear much about their bench because they've got a bunch of Iron Men. They're the Utah Jazz of the Pac-10.
I'll tell you, and when they get the inside game going and that loosens up their shooters like Patrick from the perimeter, they're a very difficult team to beat.
Well, let's pick it up Saturday afternoon. It looked like it would be a long afternoon early on because Stanford was right in there from the word go, and here comes Adam Keefe to the inside, gets him off to a good start with 2 quick baskets. I mean, he has 3 of their first 4 hoops, and looks like he's going to be giving Haskin a hard day in there as they get right to it.
You can see that. He's awful muscular. You just watch him run down the floor. He sure has a different body shape than our skinny kids.
Get into the press here, and Gary will start making things happen. Haskin with an early foul there. He doesn't like it. The coach didn't like it. And get into the press now, and Gary's going to take it away and get things going. A little bit of a slow start. You got down 8-2.
Well, Teo got that steal really right there. He knocked that out of his hands.
Gary comes up with it and scores. And Teo gets 2 more quick ones to tie the score and then give you the lead. So Teo, again, making the most of his time in there.
Right. He also did something that he hadn't done before. He really recovered well all through the game, and if you recall, Earl missed a slam dunk,
right.
and there was Teo right there.
We'll see that at the end. He's right behind him to follow it up. Yeah. And, he didn't start the one game, and that has not been a problem for him. He understands his role, and he'll play where he's going to play.
Well, as long as he doesn't think it's a demotion, any decision we make is for the welfare of the team that's going to help us in any given game. And sometimes players think that you're picking on them or that you're demoting them, and that isn't the case at all.
All right, we go to the outside game. Ammon had the big game here. He can light him up from the outside, but he was the only guy who got hot from the outside in this game. Gets one early.
He's a fine shooter. You let him set up and get into his rhythm, he's very difficult to defend on that 3-point shot.
Stanford only made 3 3-point baskets in the game. They were all made by Kenny Ammon. But at the other end, McKinney, another outside shot, making it happen, and now Gary going to get fancy. He got his points in this one. A little scoop to the hoop. He's on his way to 32.
Well, it's amazing that you can get 32 and still get double in assists.
Earl Martin now following up his own miss. Earl on his way to 22. And again, a good offensive week, and he also shot very well in this game.
He's playing with great confidence. Earl is very, very proud of Earl because he's come a long ways, and he's our oldest veteran, being a 5th-year senior, and you see him right there. He's made a nice play there, too.
And he had his share. He had 3 steals, 3 breakaways in this game. So he's getting out there and playing the D. He's kind of following along with what Will has developed into as that other man out on the defense. It's not just Gary playing half court anymore. You can see Gary spin to the hoop, draw the foul. That's so nice. We're going to see that again. And Gary putting on a lot of moves. He, of course, the winner of the Hayward Award, Outstanding Amateur Athlete in the state this week, and quite an honor, and I think most deserved.
I think so, too. He's worked very hard to put himself into position to get some honors, and can't think of a nicer person to have it go to.
Just before halftime, it's going to be Brantley cutting in on Earl Martin's action. He'll take it away, go in, draw the foul, and at halftime it is 47-29. And got things under control. Start the second half. Steal. Here comes Earl again. Makes it a 23-point lead, 52-29. At this point, Stanford is able to make a bit of a run. We're going to see Vlahoff go inside. They're also going to hit a few 3-pointers. You've got some of the bench in right there, and it doesn't seem too critical at this point.
Well, you know, Stanford's always difficult because they have some intelligent players and they play controlled basketball, and if they get ahead of you, that's when you really have trouble because they just kind of spread the court and open up the middle and get the ball to their big players.
And with the three-pointer, that's how they'll come back into a game if they
Right.
hit it. But they didn't. They only tried 8 three-point baskets.
Well, our game plan, and I think our guards, especially our perimeter people, really did a fine job knowing where they were and adjusting and not sagging so much that they give them time to set up and shoot.
Here's Earl again missing the slam. There's Teo. We
That's
talk
the
about the
one, yeah.
opportunity right there. So good stuff. The final score ends up being 82-64. The numbers from the game, very good. Shooting 50% again, 80% at the free throw line. Free throws in the past have been a bugaboo, but lately they've been going in. Earl, 22 points, 10 of 18 from the field. Carl Anderson, 9 points and 7 boards off the bench. Certainly his most solid performance of the year.
Right.
So you come through the weekend at 10-1, just where you want to be. Again, back in first place. And again, any black mark at all on the weekend?
Not really. We didn't sustain any injuries. Everybody's healthy. We had 2 days off for rest and for studying. So we're ready to get back on the floor right this afternoon and try to make more improvement and get ready for the Ducks.
All right, well, we're going to look ahead now to this week, talk about our featured player. It is Earl Martin, one of the quiet men starting to make a lot of noise in his senior year. Well, our featured player this week is Earl Martin, the senior from down L.A. way. And boy, he was one guy who was a very quiet lad when he came in here. We talk about Will Brantley not being much of a talker. Earl was certainly, what we call him, sleepy when we were in the Seven Dwarfs days.
Well, Earl has done a tremendous job. He's worked, and then also he's developed his personality to where now he's much more aggressive than when he first came to us. And that's the one thing he had to do to improve his basketball and help us improve Oregon State's team. And he worked very hard to get to this point. 2 best games of his career.
We'll take a look at his stats from over the weekend. The combined numbers against Stanford and Cal, 39 points, 16 of 28, not 48. It was better shooting than that. 16 of 28 from the field, 6 steals, and 8 rebounds total for Earl. And, of course, the steals really led to some good stuff against Stanford. We'll take a look at some action of him in that game against Stanford and talk about the steals, and we've seen a couple of them already. He's out there, and we talked about playing the perimeter on defense. He's right out there with Will and Gary.
He's the one that we use inside and out. One of the players that we have the luxury of saying, Earl, because of all your experience, you play inside part of the time, and then you play on the outside. So he gives us the flexibility of going small or big.
Talk about his leadership role. We saw him much more aggressive, just shooting the ball from the start of the season. He's probably the best three-point shooter on the team, and not afraid at all to take it from the outside. And guys have gone out and try to knock him off of that. And he's had several 4-point plays this year.
He keeps his head in the game. He's turning out to be one of our best competitors. And here again, as I said, this was not one of his big fortes when he first came to Oregon State.
Is he one of your recruits now?
Yeah, he's one of my recruits. I love the guy. He's done so many nice things, and he helps in recruiting. He takes care of his classwork. He's going to graduate, and he does all the things you want a student athlete to do.
All right, well, we'll talk about him graduating. We'll talk about Gary Payton's future when we come back. A look ahead at the NBA prospects of our favorite number 20. Well, we've talked so much about Gary Payton this year, although we've laid off him on the show. I guess sometimes he could be player of the week every week, but we got to be balanced and get everybody in there. But maybe time today to talk a little bit about his prospects, because I think the nation is coming around. USA Today has now listed Gary in the top 5 players in the country, and even Dick Vitale reversed himself and said, compared to Rumeal Robinson, he'll take Gary now. So everyone's coming around to this.
Vitale probably got a little egg on his face and probably decided I better back up a little bit here. And he has seen Gary play, and he knows how good he is, and I don't know why. Sometimes he goes from broadcast to broadcast deciding who's the best.
Especially if he's doing a Pac-10 game as opposed to a Big Ten game.
Exactly.
Well, in any case, looking ahead to Gary's pro prospects, we had a chance to bring in Brad Greenberg, chief scout for the Portland Trail Blazers, always a good assessor of talent, in fact, responsible for some of the good moves the Blazers have made these past 2 years. And Brad talks about the relative abilities and draftability of Gary Payton, Rumeal Robinson, and LSU's Chris Jackson.
Well, he's an outstanding prospect. He's one of the most competitive players in college basketball. Plus, he's a very gifted athlete, and he has a real feel for the game. He has appreciation for the fundamentals, and also he's got the instincts. So he's really as complete a small guard as there is in college basketball.
Rumeal Robinson.
Rumeal's greatest asset, I think, is his strength and his athleticism. He also is a fundamentally sound player. He may have a little bit more shooting range right now than a Gary Payton, but Payton is probably a better playmaker, a better passer. It's a little more instinctive for Gary Payton to run a team and make plays and involve other people than it is maybe right now for Rumeal Robinson.
And Chris Jackson.
Well, he's an underclassman, but certainly one of the outstanding guards in the country. Chris Jackson is probably the best one-on-one player of all the backcourt performers in college basketball. He's someone who is virtually impossible to stop one-on-one when his game is sharp.
Anyone in the Pac-10 we don't talk about, maybe a Keith Smith. I mean, do they even begin to rank in that territory?
Well, Keith Smith is having a good senior year, and I think he's a definite NBA prospect. He may not be right now considered among the elite small guards in the country, but he is certainly a player that appears draftable with a chance to play in the NBA.
And finally, who do you want out of the big three?
Well, it's really tough to pinpoint right now. You know, when we go about arriving, hopefully at a draft pick, you know, we'll consider a lot of things. But any one of those guys we've talked about would certainly look good in our uniform.
Talk about Gary Payton in a Trailblazer uniform, and they've got a lot of guards right now, so I don't think we can automatically expect to see him here next year. But he's passed the test. He's maybe not physically as big and strong, but he doesn't get hurt either when he gets banged around.
I'll go out on the limb to say that whoever he goes with, they're going to improve their record by a big margin, because he affects everybody on the team. He'll do some things in every category statistically, plus, as I mentioned, he'll make other players better.
And it's one thing, and Brad Greenberg said this, he could help anybody because even on a half-court team, he'll go out and play the defense, and on a fast-breaking team, obviously, he runs the floor.
Well, Gary's even going to be better in the pros, in my estimation, because it's still a more open game throughout the season. They look for the fast break, and they look for open court action. And from free throw line to free throw line in the game of basketball, I have a hard time visualizing anybody being better than him.
All right, that's the Gary Payton report for this week, and now we'll get on to the next opponent, the Ducks, coming up. Round 3 of Civil War can only get tougher. We'll talk about it coming up. It's Civil War time, round 3. Oregon State, this time at Gill Coliseum. The Beavers have won the first 2 very hard-fought games, and if there's any team the Ducks have really improved against and maybe had your number a little more so this year, it is Oregon State, but they haven't been able to win it yet, but they've been very close.
We're going to try to prevent them from winning this one coming up, too, at Gill, because we need to get the win at home. And I think our players are at the position of the season where they're not going to lose to anybody at home, I hope. And if they do, it's going to be a hard-fought battle because we need the win badly.
All right, we know what the Ducks do. Let's get the scouting report on this game from assistant coach Andy McCluskey.
Okay, against the University of Oregon, for the second time around, actually the third time around, because we played them in the Far West Classic this year. I think the important thing for us is that we pay particular attention to their personnel a little bit this time and try to take away some of the strengths that they have individually and not worry so much about X and O's because we've seen them twice. Anything that they do probably isn't going to be a surprise to us, but some of the things that their individuals do, I think it's important that we take away. Starting at their point guard form is Terrell Brandon, who I think really has made a big impact on their team. With Terrell, he likes to go to his left and shoot the jump shot, and when he penetrates to his right, he's more of a passer than he is a scorer. So with Terrell, what we'd like to do is force him to shoot the jump shot to his right, to keep him on the perimeter, and also be aware of where he is on the floor at all times. He's an excellent player. Being from the state of Oregon, this game means a lot to him. At the second guard, they'll either start Mixon or Helms, and in both cases, they're players that are outstanding outside shooters, and we need to be aware of where they are on the court at all times. In transition, we need to make sure that we pick them up and are with them because they can hit the long shot. Neither Mixon or Helms put the ball on the ground as well as Brandon does, So when Brandon doesn't have the ball and it's in those people's hands, we need to pressure them more so than we would Terrell. At small forward, they have Keith Reynolds from Springfield, and as I said before, he's an Oregon kid, hasn't had great success against the Beavers since he's been at Oregon for the last 2 years. I think he's a guy that we need to control. In both games, he's played well against us. They send him off a lot of double screens. He gets into the lane where he can elevate and get a good look at his jump shot. He's a guy that we need to force out on the floor as far as possible to catch the ball, because if he gets it in the areas where he's comfortable scoring, he's very difficult to stop. At the big forward, they have Lucas, who's an excellent player in terms of setting screens, going to the offensive board. After he sets a screen, he opens up to the ball and scores and does most of his damage inside. He's a player that we need to try to force out on the court as far as possible so that he isn't in an area where he's comfortable scoring. At the center, they have Bob Fife, who's a freshman and is really improving as the season goes on. He's a kid that's capable of shooting a nice, soft turnaround jump shot to about 10 or 12 feet. He's an excellent passer from the high post in their high-low series. So when he handles the ball in the high post, we have to respect his shot from there, but realize he's probably going to pass it. Once the ball goes up, which is true of all their players, once the ball goes up on the board, we need to make sure that we're blocking them off so that they're not able to go and get second shots.
Well, you've been able to handle Terrell Brandon well, especially in the second game. It may be one of those things if he decides to take charge, and we'll take a look back at that game at Matt Court now. If Brandon decides to take charge, it makes it a lot tougher.
Well, he's a fine player. He can handle the ball with either hand. He can score. He can get assists. And he's an intelligent player. He does for Oregon what Gary Payton does for us, and he's a very fine player. They have a nice combination of players on the floor when they start, and they're playing more aggressive, and I think they're a fine team.
This was the game at Matt Court on the 13th. Keith Reynolds gets to be inside. Our first scouting report talked about that. They want that spot right on the baseline. They want that lob. They want to get the ball in there, and now the Fife has turned into much more of an offensive force than anybody thought. They got more than one guy who goes there.
There's no doubt this should be a fine game on Sunday. We think we've improved, however, and our players are anxious to play. We like to compete. We like each other. We're a team, and so we're certainly not going into this game with any skepticism. We respect Oregon. We know they're well coached. They have good players, but we're looking forward to the game.
There are two games in recent years, at least since I've been in the state, that have been very intriguing at Gill in this series. 1986. The game that was considered a major upset at the time, broke the long streak that Oregon won with a good team and with a good bunch of seniors. Keith Balderston played a big role in that game. And then last year's game, Ralph Miller's last game as head coach, that was almost destined to not go their way from the start. Johan Ronaldo dunks to open the game. Right. You win by this huge margin, and it almost shouldn't have been played because it was a coronation kind of thing. And you've had interesting games at Gill.
Right. Normally they're not blowouts. Normally they're very hard fought, and they come down to the last few plays, one way or the other. What do you say? In a rivalry like this, and so many times, I've been playing as a player and a coach against Oregon at least 100 games. And so when you look at 100 games, I mean, that just almost makes you sick. There's a lot of pressure, a lot of tough games down the road to come and in the past.
Well, coming up next week, we will give you a full recap of the Oregon game, 2 halves of action for you in our next show. Please join us then for the coach. I'm Bob Akamian, and that's the Jimmy Anderson Show. Here's a look at the Pac-10 standings as we are now 1 week going into the second week of the second half of the conference season. Beavers back on top thanks to USC beating UCLA, and now the LA schools are going to have to go into the desert. Arizona picked up those 3 losses early, and they've got to fight for it, but they've got a chance to make up a little hay now with the LA schools coming to town.
That should be a big test. That's going to be the most interesting part besides our game with the Ducks this weekend.
California at 6-4 now, and the Ducks at 6-5. Cal very fortunate to win in Eugene on Sunday. They really struggled through that game, get the win. They're 6-4, and the team on the way up, Arizona State now at 5-6. They've got a chance with UCLA coming in. Who knows what happens there.
Right. In fact, when you win on the road like they did this past weekend, and then you go home to a home game and you're playing UCLA, I tell you, watch out, Bruins. This could be a big upset coming.
The Washington school is perhaps the most disappointing this year. The Huskies just aren't doing it. I think Lynn Nance maybe is thinking ahead and making those personnel moves that are going to work down the road, but it's almost as if they haven't tried that hard to win some of those games.
Well, they seem to be in every game, and a lot of times they're ahead at halftime, but just can't seem to pull it out at the end.
And the poor Cougars are 1-10. They're a lot better than that, and they have been in more games than that.
They're playing extremely hard and shooting extremely poor.
Go to the schedule this week. Here we go. UCLA at Arizona State Thursday night could be the upset special. The Sun Devils, Bill Frieder really wants to make it happen there, and that's a showcase game to do it in.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Washington at Cal is an interesting matchup, too, because the Bears, we were saying they've won 4 of the last 5, but they had the big loss Thursday night in Corvallis. They've got to bounce back. They're home. They need 2 wins, and it's a chance for them to do it.
Well, they're dreaming of an NCAA berth just like all of us are, and they need to win at home and improve that record to get there.
Yeah, Lou Campanelli, a little tired of the NIT. He wants to go to the big show.
Right.
And Stanford hosting Washington State. Go to Saturday. Here's the big one. UCLA at Arizona. TV game. They're in Tucson. That crowd at the McHale Center. And just as UCLA has prospered with their home cooking in the big games against the Beavers and against Arizona, goes the other way now for the Bruins.
Well, this will be interesting to see Herrick and Lute Olson go against each other, and with the pressure building for this game, this will be a real good one to sit back in your armchair and just take it easy.
This is one of those games you get a lot of posturing from the bench because both these coaches love to work their crowds and work the officials.
Very animated, both of them are.
USC at Arizona State, and Cal coming right back playing Washington State. Sunday, of course, the biggest in this state, Oregon State at Yale, Washington at Stanford. I think we've talked enough about our matchup here, but needless to say, it's important. Again, it's on TV. The rest of the conference will all be watching intently because they'll have taken care of all their business, the UCLAs and the Arizonas.
Right. This will be interesting because, you know, those games with us and the Ducks are always Donnybrooks, and they're hard fought, and it usually comes right down to the end.
Quick look at the conference right now where we're starting to think about those postseason berths. How many teams are going to get to go this year?
Well, let's hope at least 4 get to go. I'm thinking that our conference is strong enough. We have enough winning teams, and if we can push it in the top 4, keep winning without destroying each other, I think we should be able to get 4.
All right, and that's 4 in the NCs, not just the NIT.
That's right.
All right, that's it for this week. We'll see you next time on The Jimmy Anderson Show.
This is the Jimmy Anderson Show, the weekly report on Oregon State University basketball.
Hi, everybody. I'm Bob Akamian, along with the coach. Welcome to this week's show. The magic number is down to 1 for Oregon State to clinch the Pac-10 regular season championship, or at least clinch the tie, but it'll be the #1 seed in the tournament. We have come so far this season, and 2 big trips to Arizona now, so it's all in front of you.
Well, it's remarkable that we're doing as well as we have at this particular season, because when we first started, nobody thought we would finish or at least be in this position. This next game is the most important game of the entire season, and I think the players are looking forward to it.
Consistency is one thing. You know, the college basketball season is so long, you have to almost expect letdowns here and there, and I think since we got through the early parts of the season, besides the Washington game, you have maintained a great deal of consistency on this team.
Well, the inside people had room for improvement, and it's very encouraging to see that each day they try to make a little step forward in becoming better as individuals and as a team member. So that has been one of the things that has helped us along in making a surge all the time.
This past weekend, the final two home games of the regular season. A lot of emotion at Gill Coliseum. Two thrilling games with USC and UCLA. Before we go on, I'm sure people will be asking you about this. You did not get the little bump in the head by trying to jam and catching yourself on the rim, did you?
No, it was an open cupboard. Maybe I was doing a high five or something, just didn't see the cupboard was open or something.
Well, I could have been after the UCLA game, certainly. We're going to recap both of last weekend's games, starting with USC Thursday night at Gill Coliseum. This was the team you said you were worried about, and boy, did they come out playing tough. The first time around, they didn't shoot well, but they came out very well in this one. Everyone in the act, Coleman, Pack, little guy we hadn't heard of early in the year, and they get going early.
He killed us. He was the real key for them to get the surge when it became 34-12. About that time, I think everybody got nervous.
Not much going on offense early on. Scott Haskin with a little hook here. He gets off to the good start, but he'll get in a little trouble here later on. Go back down to the other end. Minor, our probably the best freshman in the Pac-10 right now, gets loose for a layup. Scotty comes back and will get a follow-up tip in. But USC builds on an early lead. It's 5-7 points, and then they'll put on a real run here, and they really move the ball around well. Here's Chapman finding Coleman inside.
Well, Coleman has been a force for them for 3 years, and he's always played well against the Beavers. I think he has something against us.
Here's the transition. They get it going. Minor gets back, takes it all the way in. You talk about what a good physical team they are. They don't always play as well together, but in this game they did play very well together.
Well, with Minor being such a prolific scorer, in the second half we put Gary on him, and Gary did a tremendous job not only in his point production, but just cutting him down, and that was a real key situation for us in the win.
A three-point play at the other end put them ahead by 22 points at 34-12, and things not looking too good. Gary gets it going there with a three-point play, and a little run here in the first half. This may have been one of the more important runs of the game here. Earl Martin gets a couple of good shots. Gary will hit a three-point basket. And this may have been an important bit just to get it down inside of 10 points and establish the offense more.
Just get it close.
Gary was very important in this game in that nobody else really took charge on offense. And at what point did he just seem to say, I'm gonna have to shoot it, I can't give it up?
Well, it was, I'm going to say about halfway through the second half. You know, he did some things, and we weren't hitting lanes, we weren't hitting, you know, the outlet pass. So many things were happening, we just couldn't put the ball in the hole. So Gary just said, okay, I'm just going to shoot it myself.
Now, just before halftime, ball's loose on the floor. SC will go in and get the jam. The lead got down to 4 points, and it ended up 47-35 at halftime. And here we see Gary starting to make things happen, loses the ball, flings it up, hits the shot, and he started putting up everything there. He only had the 3 assists in the game. This takes it to halftime. It is 47-35, and then it starts happening. Here comes the turnover, and here comes Gary again. Spin, lean, look at that.
Yeah. Time and time again.
And it's still a 10-point game at this point. Again, the lead was down to 4. SC popped it up to 14, and it's just starting. Gary with a steal. They'll take it all the way in. Now we're going to see Carl Anderson off the bench. His career best game. The sophomore really just starting to get some playing time, and he was tough here. 8 boards and 10 points.
That really helped to have somebody come in the bench when other people aren't getting the job done and spark us not only in scoring but rebounding and just playing a tremendous defensive game for us also.
And he had the best game of the big men. Teo and Earl Martin held to 6. Scotty Haskin ended up with a dozen, but Carl really the key big man there in the second half. Going to see Gary getting inside, puts one in again.
58 points, that's Bob, that's a lot of points. You know, for us old-timers, that's almost a career.
There's one of Gary's biggest fans there, too, George Raveling, who always has something good to say about him.
Was he cheering Gary or cheering his team?
It seemed like by the end of the game he was cheering Gary, and we'll talk about that at the end. Teo gets an opening here, following up a missed shot by Celestine. As you break ahead, the Peyton shot gave you the lead for the first time. Teo puts you up by 7, but SC's not going away here on the road. There's Minor again on the fast break.
Yeah. They smelled a little blood, thinking they might have a chance, and they stayed right after it.
Press starting to have a little effect here. Gary puts it in. It's now 80-76. We're getting down to the 2-minute mark. But a little miscue here at midcourt. SC gets the ball back. This series
that
really
was crucial. That was crucial. That took it into overtime, those kind of plays. When you have a lead and you can't sustain it because of mistakes.
That got it down to 2. Free throw by Celestine makes it 3. And now, with 4 seconds left, you just hope to get this on the road. Glenn buries the three-pointer, but sends it to overtime. We'll get another look at it. There's a lot of pressure on him, but he finds an opening.
Well, here's the problem too now. See, they're all fired up, ready to go, and we go into huddle kind of depressed because of that made shot. Now we're into overtime. We played rotten the last 3 or 4 ball possessions. Now we got to regroup because the game's not over certainly, and they have momentum going in their direction.
Well, in the OT, Gary said, it's all over now. He makes 3 big baskets in the OT, and then at the free throw line, Charles McKinney with some clutch free throws, and the young fella comes in really under a lot of pressure, his first pressure situation here. It's over. Raveling's got a big hug for Gary, gives him a cake after the game.
Yeah, I think he's just happy that he's leaving. I don't know whether he's that much of a fan. I think he's glad he's gone.
Well, let's take a look at the Gary line from this game. We look at the key stats from this one. 58 points for Gary Payton, 22 of 38 from the field. Those are all OSU records. Second most points ever scored in a Pac-10 game, and the other guy was this fellow named Jabbar, who scored 61 down at UCLA once upon a time. So that's a pretty good mark for Gary. Anderson off the bench with the 10 points and 8 rebounds. And for USC, Harold Miner, their leader, 27 points and 7 boards. They also got good outings, though. Coleman had 24. And Robert Pack, the new face, the little fella, number 20, ends up with 22, 8 of 12 shooting. So they shot very well. They outshoot you 52 to 46%. Rebounding very close, and you feel very fortunate to win a game like that.
Exactly. And especially at home, and one we had to have. Those are tough to come by.
Well, that took us to the game everyone was pointing to. UCLA Saturday afternoon, a chance for a little revenge on one of the few teams to get a victory this season over Oregon State, and we'll recap the Bruins game coming up. The Thursday victory over USC gave you the 20th win of the season. Always a nice benchmark, kind of guarantees you're going to be in postseason somewhere. Then you had a little unfinished business against UCLA on Saturday. Bruins beat you down there. We talked about it the first half, though, and Paulie, I think it showed you can play against UCLA. This team knows how to beat UCLA.
Well, being ahead at halftime and having them make their surge in the second half where they beat us, this is kind of turnaround fair play, so to speak, and this was another important game for us.
All right, let's pick it up. The final home game of the season at Gill Coliseum. Of course, Gary Payton's final home game for all the seniors, and a big send-off at Gill as everyone is introduced. The crowd a big factor in this game. They were in it from the first minute.
Nice start.
And it really made a difference. There's Gary taking the floor for the final time. Some interesting turns in this one, though. There were a lot of back and forth segments. Early on, this is the first hoop of the game, but it kind of set the tone. Payton gets it into Haskin, draws the foul against Murray. And a big part of it is to get their big guys back on their heels, and they did ultimately get frustrated.
Well, Gary had a poor shooting night for percentages, but then again, right in clutch time, he came through. He himself even said that it was kind of one of his poor shooting nights.
He does nail this three-pointer, opening up an 8-point lead early in the game. And then the guy off the bench, who you maybe didn't expect to get all the help out of, Will Brantley. He's had that sprained ankle. He's been slowed down, been in some pain. He comes in and hits a bunch of baskets, 4 quick ones, a little stretch that really builds the lead up to a dozen at one point. And what a plus to get him back in there.
Well, at halftime he was 5 for 6, and the shots he hit, they kind of changed their defense, and they started to double down on Gary. Anytime Gary got the ball, they would send a second man, and that left Will open, and Will capitalized.
And of course, all season long, that's when Will's had the opportunities.
Right.
There's a score on the break off a transition. Mack and Brantley caused the turnover here. Lamont McIntosh got some good minutes in this game,
yes,
too.
Yes, he did. He got a couple nice rebounds. He took a charge, got a steal, and so he had some very positive moments for us.
Well, UCLA does not go away and hide, and they get it going. Madkins and Wilson team up for this one. Trevor running the ball very well, and Madkins gets in for the hoop, and that 12-point lead is all of a sudden down to 3 late in the first half, and now Madkins again from Trevor, and it's down to a 3-point game.
I think that was a little bad defense on Gary. Let the guy slip in behind him when he was watching the ball.
Nice shot by Teo. Good, strong move inside. Trying to beef it up, but they will come back, and Butler will hit the layup. UCLA leads briefly by a point at halftime. A couple of free throws, and you're back ahead 40-39 at the break, but it's real close at this point. And they come out with a Big move to start the second half. Peyton turns it over, and here's Trevor for the jam. All of a sudden, UCLA's up by 6.
Yeah, see, you can see in all the film that you've shown so far, everything's transition. You let UCLA get in transition game, you make them go to a half court, you got a chance. You let them run and get in transition, they're unbelievable.
Martin burying a three-pointer there. And by the same token, you like to run, you like to have Gary run the floor, but you don't want to get into the back and forth game.
Not that, not with them.
So you have to almost turn yourself down a notch to play that defense.
Right, there they go again.
That was McLean on the layup. McLean had a big offensive game. He had the big game at Pauley, but he wasn't as much of a force in this game. He got a lot of points, and they weren't as key.
Yeah, especially in crunch time. I think he did most of his damage really before the last few minutes when Gary kind of turned things on.
Now there's Carl Anderson with the layup on the break, and now Scotty will get the little hook here. This was a little run of 13 in a row where you do control the ball in offense. UCLA can't run. I think they missed 10 shots in a row, and most of them are out of their half court. Earl with a three-pointer. Brantley's going to get one. Peyton's going to get one. And from being down by 6, you've moved back ahead by 6 with 6 minutes to go. A good solid run.
That was a key timing for us, and you could see the little bit of panic on them for our run.
And there's Peyton finishing it off. Crowd loves it. Back up by 6, and that pretty much puts it away. In the final 6 minutes, they didn't have anybody step up and really want the ball. We talk about McLean. In the final 6 minutes, I think he had just one basket.
Yeah.
And Gary finishing it up. We'll get a look at him here saying goodbye to the fans. He finally lets it all hang out here at the end. The final score, 83-74, a very good win. Some good numbers, and Gary gets to finish up. Great showtime here at the end. All by his lonesome.
Yeah, that was a key play, too, because it was a three-point play.
A fitting farewell, 83-74 the final. Let's look at some of the numbers from this game now. Again, Gary goes out with not a spectacular 23-point. Did get the 12 assists, though. He wanted a big assist game to go out on because he's still chasing Douglas's record.
Right.
I think he's within 40 of it now.
Something like 42 or 3, something like
so
that.
with two conference games and figure at least 2 tournament games left, plus a postseason game, he's got a very good crack at that.
I guess we're spoiled a little bit. He gets 23 points, and he gets 58 the night before, so now we think he has a bad night. Come on, Gary, shape up.
But he actually played probably a better all-around game against UCLA, too.
Yeah.
Will Brantley, 14 points, shot 7 of 9 coming off the bench.
Yeah,
Again,
that
great
helps.
contribution for Will. Earl, 14 and 9, very solid game. McLean gets 32, and it doesn't really influence the game that much. UCLA also shot pretty poorly, 44% for the game. Rebounding totals split up 37-37.
Apiece, yeah.
So that's about average out. So you're 21-4 now. A very successful weekend, and I think very good feelings going to Arizona.
It sets the stage, and that's what we've been working for, and which still comes down to the same formula. You know, we're going to try to go down and get 2, but really, we said from the start, if you can split on the road, and this will prove that, we got to win that first game, and at least we're co-champions, and then we'll go into Arizona and just kind of take that in stride and just try to maybe try to see if we can't break their streak that they got going.
All right, next we will meet our feature player of the week. It's Carl Anderson, the young fella from Chicago. Made himself noticed on Thursday night. We'll meet him coming up. Well, this being the end of the season, it's time to pick our all-tournament and all-newcomers teams, and I thought we'd do it where I'd go ahead and make my picks. We'll let the coach refute or confirm as he goes along. So let's start with Bob's All-Pac-10 team for 1990, and we're going to have to start off with Gary Payton as the most valuable player. I think that goes without saying. After that, I like Keith Smith of Cal as my other guard. Go along with that?
Well, he didn't have very good games against us. Rick Kasner, I think from Washington, really, if I was selecting, I think I'd go with Rick Kasner because he's had 2 tremendous games against us.
All right, in the middle, Adam Keefe of Stanford. We don't have too many classic big men left in the conference anymore.
No argument there, though.
And he's a guy who really works hard
No argument.
and made a lot of teams look bad. He had great games against OSU and UCLA. He really was responsible for that win against UCLA. Up front, I like McLean at 1 forward and Judd Bushler. You got to pick somebody from Arizona, and I think Bushler means more to Arizona than any other one guy.
I'll agree with both those 2 selections also. It's not an extremely tall team, but it's a very aggressive team, and it's a team that can put some points on the board, too.
Let's look at the all-newcomer team now. There's a lot of good new players in the league, and right up top, I'm going with Terrell Brandon of the Oregon Ducks as the best newcomer at 1 guard, and Benny Seltzer of Washington State at the other guard.
I think if you're picking the guards, if you're going to have an all-around team, those two would be the best two new-coming guards in the conference.
Again, we don't really have a center in there. Tracy Murray's a big guy. He plays forward, center, moves
Yeah.
around down low.
I might argue a little bit there. I might
Okay.
go with Henricks from Cal because he played extremely well all year long for him. He's the one player, I think, in their program that helped them be in third place because they didn't have a postman coming in, and he's the one that really kind of gathered them together.
The forwards, I think maybe your favorite all-around guy would be Harold Miner from USC.
Right, especially in the scoring category. 35 and 27, I think he had against us. I don't think you can argue that.
And Brian Williams, maybe a controversial pick because he comes from out of the conference. He's certainly not a newcomer. He played at Maryland and had to sit out his year. Without putting him on the top 5, again, I think Buechler has more impact for them, but Williams is a newcomer, certainly made a mark in Arizona.
Right, and maybe his teammate might argue with him a little bit because Stokes, the freshman, has come on very strong in the last few games, and now both of them are starting, and they kind of have a rotation there. So, but I think Williams is the best selection.
Yeah, it's hard to pick one guy off that Arizona team.
Yeah.
Now, we talk about the newcomers. We didn't have any Oregon State guys in there. What do you think about your newcomers now? What did you see?
I think Carl Anderson for us coming, you know, he's improving every game, and he has done an excellent job for us. And Charlie McKinney would be the other one that has come in and given us some key moments also.
All right, coming up, we are going to meet Carl Anderson, our Player of the Week. The Jimmy Anderson Show will continue.
Almost
Let me get out of order.
five kind of did for freshmen, but for newcomers, I think that's right.
Carl Anderson, just a sophomore, came out of King High School in Chicago, where, of course, Marcus Liberty, one of the most heralded recruits in the country, and he played on that team with him. Comes out here, and he didn't get that big starting role here like Liberty did at Illinois, but we're starting to see some of Carl this year. Had his career high against USC, and I got to be proud of a good balanced game for him. 10 points and 8 rebounds.
Well, he's been turning it on lately. He's an excellent athlete. He really doesn't know how good he could be down the road if he continues to work hard, and his self-image of his own style hasn't even been developed. He was kind of maybe the 6th man at Martin Luther King High School in Chicago, and that's a very high-profile school. They're #1 in the country right now for high schools.
All right, we talked to Carl this week about his growth in the program. He's still getting used to being a household name in Corvallis. Let's meet Carl Anderson now.
Working hard every day in practice and trying to learn the offense and the defensive system we have. And when I'm on the court, you know, everything's been working out fine for me. From high school and now to here. I just come out and just try to rebound because that's my main point in my game. Just rebound, try to put it back up strong as I can. After Gary leaves, because he was like more of the offense for us and, you know, playmaker. By him leaving, going to the pros, it's going to just have to be just everybody on their own talent, just try to put the ball in the hole. I'm just going to work hard all season, get on the weights and get a little stronger for the guys because it's my first year playing, and I know you got to be a little stronger than what I am. You're getting knocked around for teams like UCLA and other teams. So I'm going to be looking forward for next year and just try to work hard at learn offense.
He has been learning it. One question, early in the year, his playing time was in very small amounts. He'd go in, he'd get a rebound, and then he'd be right out of there. And I know I had some questions about that. Why does somebody get just short bursts of time like that?
Well, sometimes it's closeness of the games, and he doesn't have much experience, and we were trying to get that for him. But when the game is close, you're not going to experiment too much. But as you used him, he did good things on the floor, so he kind of earned his own time because of his performance.
So now does he fit in? You've been adding guys one by one all year. Has he now made the grade?
I think so. We don't have any. Two things you have to do is, #1, you can't hurt us by turning the ball over. #2, you got to play defense. And he's a specialist in rebounding too, and we need that. So he offers 3 dimensions, and that's rebounding, defense, and not turning the ball over. And he does that extremely well for us.
All right, we'll look for him this weekend down in the desert. And coming up, we will preview the last trip of the season, Duels in the Desert, coming up. The Beavers can clinch at least a tie for the Pac-10 regular season title with a win at Arizona State on Thursday night. And I got to go all the way back to November for the first meeting between the two schools. So to refresh our memory, here is assistant coach Freddie Boyd with a scouting report on the Sun Devils.
Okay, one of our concerns against Arizona State is maintaining our full court pressure on them. make it very difficult for them to get the ball down the court and get into their half-court offense. Their strength is playing the ball inside. But if we can put enough pressure on them to where they have to scramble around and use other people to handle the ball that normally wouldn't handle it, it will make our job a lot easier. We're going to be pressed. This is their alignment. Arizona State says 4 people across. We will match them with 2 wings, and we will face guard these 2 players here, trying to prevent the ball from coming in real easy. These 2 people will screen, cross. This guy will break into here, and he will release out this way. These 2 guys will have the option of coming here to receive the ball. It's very important that our 2 wing people keep enough pressure on that this guy cannot inbound the ball to either wing. Because our difficulty comes in when they're able to inbound it here and this guy streaks. Because this guy's here, he has to come over and they pass it across court. So we're going to make the adjustment and try to make the ball be received by this man so that we can fall into our 2-2-1 alignment, where this guy now drops in here and we're like this, up the floor. And if we can do that, our chances of victory will be very good against the Sun Devils.
That pressure really did do the job the first time at Gill, and obviously you maintained that. It's successful.
Well, the first part of the year, that's probably one of the parts of the game you're not really prepared for is tough pressure, and that was the big difference in that game. They are experienced now to handle pressure, so we have to go to, I think they'll get us in a half-court game, so we have to play smart half-court defense.
Now they're down there in the bottom half of the league at 5-11. That's the team you hate to have to go play at home at the end of the year. They know they got the tournament coming up at their building too, so they're not just sitting around.
No, and they have, as we talk, they have good players. They have experience. They have the Austin brothers that are tremendous athletes, and so they'll be ready to play us. They always do.
All right, then Arizona over the weekend, Saturday afternoon in Tucson. If things don't work out Thursday night, Arizona has a chance to steal the conference title with a win, and they're very hot right now. We'll take a look at the first game from back in November, but again, it's a different team. They didn't play well that day. The pressure took them out of it. They're very frustrated early on, and again, a very different situation with Arizona, too.
Right.
To play them again, it's going to be, again, a big mission for them. How do you approach that?
Well, they have to first get by Oregon. We're not even thinking about Arizona. We're just trying to think about Arizona State and leave it at that, and then try to pick up, loose ends on Friday and get ready to play the best game we can. We had one of our best games of the year. It set the tempo for us this season. By winning that game, it gave our players the thought, hey, we can play with anybody in the country.
We'll find out. The big one, of course, Thursday night in Tempe. That will set the tone, and then Arizona on Saturday. This is our final show of the season, so that will wrap it up. It's on to the Pac-10 tournament from here, another trip back to the desert. It's been fun doing the first year with you, and as we move into the Jimmy Anderson era at Oregon State.
Right. New experience for me, and I enjoyed it very much. Beautiful crew. Working with you was fun, and hope maybe we can do it again next year.
All right. Thanks for joining us on the Jimmy Anderson Show. Here's a final look at the Pac-10 standings as we go into the final week, and of course all the jockeying is going on for position in the conference tournament. We know about the battle for first place. Only Arizona can now win the conference besides Oregon State. Look at the rest of them there. California and Oregon, the 2 teams with a bullet right now, and they're both on their way up. California's played very well since the games in Oregon. The Ducks are beating the tar out of everybody.
UCLA is the only team that really moved down 2 notches, and Cal and Oregon moved up into the 3rd and 4th spot.
Looking at the first round of the tournament, if we got to it today, the Ducks would play UCLA and Cal would play Stanford. Now, they're going to play each other twice this week anyway. Could be 3 straight Cal-Stanford matchups.
That's just luck of the draw.
Very unusual.
Yeah.
We look at the bottom 4 teams, and of course, this is who you're looking at for your first conference tournament opponent. If Oregon State wins, they will play the winner of the 8th and 9th place game. That would be USC and probably Arizona State, because the Huskies win that tiebreaker with the Sun Devils. If you finish second, you'll get a winner of a Washington State first-round conference game. But I guess this time of year, no rematch looks good.
Now, well, what happens, everybody's got a little bit of a thought, if we do well in the tournament and win it, it's a fresh start. It's like a new season for every team going in.
And everybody, each year in the Pac-10 tournament, one team has done that. Everyone's had that big move.
Right.
Here's the schedule for this week. Cal and Stanford play twice. The first one was played Wednesday night at Maples Pavilion. They come back and play again over the weekend. Thursday, the big ones, Oregon State at Arizona State. And the Ducks can help you out with a win in Tucson, but that's a big order because Oregon has had their problems playing at the McHale Center over the years.
And especially with the home court advantage there and the big string they got going, and they still got a chance for the title.
Washington goes down and plays at USC. The Huskies again can improve themselves, take 7th place, and Washington State has to play at UCLA. The Bruins lost 5 straight. They're just trying to stop the bleeding right now.
No, I think they're going to take it out on those 2 schools.
Saturday, it'll be Oregon State at Arizona. The finale for you. You get an extra day to come home and relax before the tournament after that game. The Ducks will play at Arizona State. Washington State is at USC. And then Sunday, the final Stanford-Cal game. And the last game of the regular season, the Huskies at UCLA. The tournament begins Thursday, March 8th. The Beavers' first game will be the 9th in Tempe. To go to Arizona, come back, and then have to go back there, what's that drill going to be like early next week?
Well, it's just like a regular week because that's normally what we're doing anyway when we play conference games. You come home and you usually leave at that time, so it's the same routine.
All right, that'll wrap it up for the 89-90 season. For the coach, I'm Bob Akamian. Thanks for joining us on The Jimmy Anderson Show.